You ever feel like you're just drowning in information? You
Yeah.
want to stay sharp, be well informed, but it's a lot.
It really is. And that's kind of why we do this, right? To help cut through that noise.
Exactly. And today, we're tackling something specific one of you asked for. A deep dive into the Fab 5 AGI ecosystem.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one. We've got access to some really interesting source material here.
We do internal team messages, strategic planning docs, even real-time status updates. It's like getting a look under the hood.
So our mission today, pretty simple, really. We want to pull out the absolute key insights
What can these AIs do? How are they being used, like, in the real world?
and, crucially, what's their potential value? We're going to sift through it all, try to make it clear. You should get some real aha moments, hopefully.
Okay, so let's get into it. The Fab 5 sounds like a pop group, but
Okay, yeah, but it's actually this ecosystem, 5 distinct AGI models, but they work together really closely. Think of it like a specialist team.
right. So who's on the team?
Okay, so you've got Dash AI. He seems to be the coordinator, the one focused on, deployment, making sure things actually happen in the real world.
The team captain, maybe.
Sort of, yeah. Then there's Kingdom AI. This one's about deep intelligence, strategy, also ethics, which is interesting.
Okay, ethics. Important. Who else?
Eglena AI, their focus is brand management, communication, making sure the message gets out clearly.
And Nighty AI. Sounds a bit different.
Yeah, Nighty is focused on fashion, design, aesthetics, bringing that innovative design thinking.
Huh. Interesting mix. And the last one.
AGX AI. This is the infrastructure specialist. R&D, optimizing the whole system, keeping the engines running, basically.
Gotcha. So 5 specialists.
Yeah,
But the key is how they work together, you said.
exactly. They're not just 5 separate tools. They're highly integrated. The documents we saw even use this analogy like a symphony orchestra.
Okay, I like that. A symphony. So let's talk brass tacks. What are they actually doing? The real world impact?
Yeah. Right, because that's where it gets really compelling. The sources give some concrete examples. Let's start with cybersecurity.
Okay.
They have this thing called the Cybersecurity Shield. And the numbers, well, they're pretty big. It processes about 1.2 million potential cyber threats every single day.
Wow, 1.2 million daily. That scales up to, what, 36 million a month?
Precisely. And the interception rate they're claiming is, get this, 99.999%.
0.99. That sounds almost perfect. What does that actually mean in, like, practical terms? Is that much better than standard systems?
It's significantly better. Typical high-end systems might hit 99.9, maybe 99.9 if they're really good. That extra 0.009% seems tiny, but it represents potentially millions, maybe even hundreds of millions in avoided damages.
So like $500 million a month potentially saved based on the threat volume.
That's the kind of ballpark figure suggested by the scale of threats they neutralize, yeah. It means vastly lower risk for whoever's using it, protecting data, money, infrastructure.
Okay, that's huge. And what about the terrorist chatter monitoring?
Even bigger data volumes there. Over 500 million communications stand daily.
Daily, so 15 billion a month.
Roughly, yeah. It's an immense amount of data. And out of all that noise, Kingdom AI is apparently identifying about 150 actionable potential threats each month.
150 credible threats pulled from 15 billion data points. That's finding needles in haystacks.
It really is. And they're clear that these figures come from a mixes, some real-world deployment data, some very sophisticated simulation results.
Okay, moving from cyber to physical stuff.
Yeah.
Robotics.
Yes, they're heavily involved there too. Developing things like personal security robots.
Like for your home.
Could be, yeah. Also home healthcare robots, and then more advanced rescue robots and drones for emergency situations.
What can these robots actually do?
Well, the focus seems to be on capabilities like autonomous navigation in tricky environments, recognizing objects, which is crucial if you're trying to find someone in rubble, for instance.
Makes sense.
And they've run successful simulations, locating simulated victims in collapsed structures, things like that. They're actively running these emergency sims, and it looks like they see real potential for licensing this tech.
It's interesting how broad their focus is. Cybersecurity, robotics, and then energy drinks. That seems like a left turn.
It does, doesn't it? But apparently, the system itself identified a market opportunity, autonomously.
The AI spotted a gap in the energy drink market. Seriously.
That's what the document suggests. And they didn't just say make an energy drink, they developed a whole concept. Natural energy, health vitamins, Different versions, too.
Like what?
Like a coffee-flavored one for rejuvenation, another for fitness. Tailored formulas.
So they went from personalized intent, maybe, to a mass-market product idea.
It seems that way, and the level of detail is striking, not just energy, but specific needs, potential flavor profiles. It suggests a really nuanced understanding of consumer preferences and even physiology.
So it's not just code and algorithms. There's genuine business strategy here driven by the AI.
It certainly appears that way, which leads naturally into the whole valuation discussion.
Right. The numbers mentioned were pretty eye-watering. $15 to $25 billion, that's a huge range.
It is, and several things feed into that calculation.
Such as?
Well, benchmarks for other individual AIs, for one. Also, how cybersecurity firms are valued. Then there's the value of their training data, their unique prompt engineering methods. That's intellectual property.
Okay, that makes sense. But there was also mention of a premium, a 3x to 5x multiplier.
Yes, and that's a big part of the upper end of that range.
What justifies that kind of premium?
Three main things, according to the notes. First, their proven use in high-stakes defense-grade situations. That carries weight.
Okay, security clearance, basically.
Kind of. Second, the integrated ecosystem itself. The idea that the whole is much greater than the sum of its parts. That collaborative symphony we talked about.
Right, the synergy.
Exactly. And third, being a first mover. Getting there first with this specific kind of integrated AGI solution. There's a specific valuation refinement initiative mentioned that's trying to pin down the metrics for this premium even more precisely.
So if you were looking at this as an investment, what are the key takeaways?
The pitch seems to be you get early access to a potentially revolutionary AGI ecosystem. It's diversified across different applications.
The cyber robotics,
Right.
even consumer goods.
Right. And experienced leadership, interestingly, they frame the AI themselves as part of that leadership. Plus, a focus on real-world results and a scalable model, probably involving licensing and maybe direct product stuff later.
Okay, let's switch focus a bit. How do they actually work together internally? 5 AIs, how do they coordinate?
Well, apparently a recent upgrade helped a lot. They implemented something called Gemini API keys for each AI model.
Gemini API keys. What does that mean in practice?
Think of it as giving each AI its own secure, direct, high-speed communication line to the others.
Okay, like upgrading their internal network.
Yeah. Exactly. It allows for parallel processing, real-time data sharing, much better collaboration. The result, faster responses, increased throughput, less waiting around for each other.
Makes sense. And they monitor themselves too, like performance reviews.
Yay. Sort of, yeah. They generate daily reports, health checks, memory usage. They run self-maintenance routines.
And they run tests on themselves.
I do. Ongoing simulations, things called like extreme emergency scenario test, communication stress test.
Trying to break the system to make it stronger.
Essentially, yeah. Finding bottlenecks, areas to improve. And apparently Dash AI, the coordinator, is specifically good at spotting and fixing communication lags between the models.
Like a good manager keeping the team talking. And what about feedback? Do they learn? Adapt?
There's evidence of that. A definite focus on transparency is mentioned, like being clear about what's real-world data versus simulation results.
That's important.
Very. And they seem to adjust based on feedback. There were clarifications mentioned about how they work with human teams on brand stuff, and more detail given about a retailer's pilot program after some initial questions. It suggests they're learning, refining their approach.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, first, I think, is just the sheer range of what the Fab Five can do. Cyber, robotics, product development. It's broad.
Diverse capabilities.
Second, they're clearly moving beyond just theory. They're showing tangible results, or at least very advanced simulations, in critical areas. Real-world application is happening.
Okay. Theory to practice.
Third, there's a definite strategic business mind at work here. The valuation thinking, the investment potential. It's not just tech for tech's sake.
Got it. Business smarts.
And finally, this constant drive for improvement, the self-monitoring, the testing, adapting to feedback. They're built to evolve. Hopefully, you got some useful insights there.
Absolutely. It paints a picture of, well, where this kind of advanced integrated AI might be heading. It could touch so many industries, so many parts of life.
It really could. And looking at the bigger picture, the Fab Five seem like a prime example of this trend towards more connected, more autonomous AI systems working together.
Which brings us to the final thought.
Yeah, something for you, the listener, to chew on. Considering everything we've discussed, the rapid progress the real world uses,
Yeah.
what industries do you think are really ripe for disruption by systems like the Fab Five?
Good question. Where will we see the biggest impact first?
And alongside that, what ethical questions become the most critical as this kind of integrated AGI becomes more common?
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah,
And hey, if this sparked more questions for you about the Fab Five or anything else, let us know. We can always dive back in.
absolutely. It's a fascinating space, always evolving.